Good evening, everyone. Before I proceed, I would like to make a humble request to everyone present over here to kindly switch your mobile phone to silent mode to avoid any interruption during the lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome you all to this special lecture organized by Tibet House, the culture center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, New Delhi. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Tenzin, who is a former lecturer and head of the Astro-Science Research and Outreach Department, Dharamsala, Himachal Pradesh, for accepting our invitation and to share his invaluable knowledge and experience with us today. Honorable Chairperson, Mr. Abhijit Harderji, Director General of IBC, International Buddhist Confederation, and the former Special Secretary to the Government of India, I am extremely thankful to you for your kind gesture to spare your precious time and joining with us today. I would also like to welcome our Secretary, Mr. Tenzin, for joining us with us today. My name is Pimpadun. I am Deputy Program Coordinator of Tibet House, New Delhi, and I will be moderating today's session. We have gathered here today to listen to and reflect upon the theme, the interdependence of the cosmos and mind, Buddhist foundation of Tibetan astrology. This lecture invites us to explore Tibetan Astro-Science as a unified discipline that integrates traditional Tibetan astronomy and Tibetan element astrology, both deeply rooted in Buddhist philosophy. As we will hear from the very expert himself, this tradition views the outer cosmos and the inner mind as inseparably connected, echoing the Kala Chakra teaching. As it is outside, so it is inside. By understanding the interdependence of phenomena and the role of 5 elements, Tibetan Astro-Science seeks not merely to interpret celestial patterns, but to support individuals in harmonizing their mental and energetic balance, navigating life's conditions, and progressing along the spiritual path toward Buddhahood. With this perspective in mind, let us open ourselves to the insights shared today and reflect on how the relation between cosmos and mind may deepen our own understanding of causality, interdependence, and spiritual growth. Let me also invite you to commemorate the 90th birth anniversary of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and celebrating the Year of Compassion in parallel to this special lecture, and request my dear participants to welcome on stage our chairperson, Mr. Abhijit Harderji, and our speaker, Mr. Tenzin, with a huge round of applause, and kindly proceed with the lighting of the ceremony lamp, invoking blessings of peace and harmony before taking their place on dais. Thank you. May I request now Secretary of Tibet House, Mr. Tenzin, to kindly do the honor of offering souvenirs and wise craft kathas to our distinguished speaker and chairperson as a token of our sincere appreciation and gratitude. Our chairperson, Mr. Abhijit Harderji. our distinguished speaker, Mr. Tenzin Loden. Thank you, Mr. Tenzin Kunkebla. Last but not the least, I would also thank our participants for your pure dedication, curiosity, and reverence toward the theme of today's lecture and being a part of this wonderful symposium. Before we begin today's lecture, I would like to briefly introduce you all about Tibet House and its activity. Tibet House, New Delhi was established in 1965 by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet House, Tibet for the purpose of preserving the cultural heritage at a time when it faced forceful challenges in Tibet as well as for providing a center for Tibetan culture and Buddhist studies. His Holiness the Dalai Lama persistent emphasis on cultivating universal harmony and compassion as a means to address global suffering, together with his encouragement for genuine exchange among diverse religious and cultural traditions, has deeply shaped the purpose and work of Tibet House. Tibet House aims to bring together Buddhist masters, Tibetologists, scholars from various disciplines, students, practitioners, and the general public through its diverse programs and events. It continues to broaden its efforts in preserving Tibet's heritage while exploring meaningful contributions to the ethical development of modern society. Over the past 5 decades, Tibet House has emerged as a prominent institution for the dissemination of Tibetan culture and the promotion of Nalinda Buddhist studies. Tibet House is a cultural center housing a museum of Tibetan arts and artifacts, a library with numerous manuscripts and books, a resource center, a conference hall, a gallery, and a bookshop. It offers a wide range of study programs on Nalinda Buddhist philosophy, along with the interdisciplinary conference on subjects such as neuroscience and Buddhist psychology, quantum physics, spiritual ecology, and universal ethics. Its publication unit produces several books each year, and its programs division regularly hosts lectures, seminars, conference, film screening, and exhibitions. Tibet House currently offers 4 structured courses in Buddhist philosophy and psychology, along with a comprehensive Tibetan language course, the Nalinda Master's course, Nalinda Diploma course, Nalinda Certificate course, and Nalinda Introductory course. With the successful completion of NDC 5 on 7 December 2025, I'm pleased to inform you that the new registration for the NDC 6 has begun on 8 February 2026 with 100% scholarship for monastics and 75% for students, and the course will commence on 15 March 2026 with 5 different translations available in Russian, French, Ladakhi, Hebrew, and Mandarin. For more information, please feel free to reach us via email pc@tibethouse.in, or you can visit our website www.tibethouse.in. The Tibetan language course, offered in 4 levels at a nominal fee, has successfully completed 29 batches. The 30th batch currently has 145 registered students, with 90 formally enrolled. Additionally, we have Nalinda Dharma Studies, which is held twice a week and continue to support Tibetan and non-Tibetan students worldwide in building a systematic foundation in Buddhist philosophy. On 2nd June 2023, nearly 500 students from the Master's and Diploma programs receive a special audience and blessings from His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, who also bestowed the oral transmission and teaching on J. Rinpoche's in praise of dependent arising. Over 4,000 students from 98 countries are currently enrolled in Tibet House's academic programs. More recently, I'm very delighted to inform you that on 16 January 2026, His Holiness the Dalai Lama granted an audience to 237 Nalinda course students of Tibet House from 26 countries at the Assemble Hall of Dripung Gomang Monastery in Mongkot, Tibetan settlement in Karnataka. The students were attending the Wisdom of Emptiness study retreat conducted by Venerable Geshe Doji Damdula, Director of Tibet House, New Delhi. During these audience, His Holiness addressed the students, offering profound guidance and encouragement for their continued study and practice for the Nalinda traditions. Now, I would like to invite our Secretary, Mr. Tenzin Kunkyabla, on the stage to kindly deliver our welcome notes.
Touch the leg and good evening, everyone. Honorable Chairperson Shri Abhijit Haldarji from IBC. Our speaker for today's program, Mr. Tenzin Loden, former lecturer and head of the Tibetan Astro-Science. Dear Venerables, friends of Tibet House and students. On behalf of Tibet House, the cultural center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and on behalf of Venerable Geshe Doji Damdul, the director of Tibet House, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the special lecture on the interdependence of the cosmos of mind and the Buddhist foundation of Tibetan astrology. I'll just read out 2 lines from the abstract shared by Mr. Loden. Tibetan Astro-Science, integrating the traditional Tibetan astrology and elemental astrology, rests upon the Buddhist view of interdependence. It recognizes that all phenomena, visible or invisible, arise from causes and conditions shaped by the dynamic interplay of 5 elements. Particularly in challenging and uncertain times, such understanding helps us cultivate the clarity, balance, and responsibility in how we live. At Tibet House, our mission is to preserve the cultural and spiritual heritage of Tibet House, and today's lecture beautifully embodies the mission, and in bridging the ancient knowledge with contemporary relevance, and reminding us that the cultural traditions and living wisdom meant to support our journey toward greater awareness and compassion. We are honored to host Dr. Tenzin Loden for his years of scholarship and practice, bringing the authenticity of the depth of this subject, and we are grateful for his presence with us today. As the Secretary of Tibet House, I would like to thank all of you for joining us, for your continued support in keeping this precious tradition alive, and may these events exploration inspire deeper reflection on the interdependence of cosmos and mind, and may it contribute to our collective aspirations towards the wisdom of inner harmony. Thank you, and now I hand over the mic to our program coordinator, Lemerton.
Thank you, Mr. Tenzin Kunkyabla, for your warm welcome. Let me now present a short introductory video of Nyensi Kang, which is called Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute in Dharamshala, to give you a crisp understanding of its establishment and its various aspects of functionality.
ngong de ram de chung da nyam de dugo chenbo da leben.
And it's important to move at the center of the management plan and process.
You go and you build chemicals to see if we can solve that problem.
So in order to see things with a microscope, what's done a lot is
It is a great honor for Tibetan Medical and Astro-Science Institute Dharamsala and Tibet House, Culture Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama here in Delhi to organize this 5-day program on the tradition of Tibetan medicine and Astro-Science.
Allow me to introduce the chairperson, Mr. Abhijit Hardarji. Mr. Abhijit Hardarji served in the government of India for 37 years and retired as a Special Secretary in January 2022. He has served in Indian mission in a number of countries as a part of diplomatic service. Presently, Director General of International Buddhist Confederation, IBC. He has dealt with Buddhism and especially Tibetan Buddhism over the years in India and abroad. As a Director General, IBC effectively coordinates India's Buddhism narrative with various India-based and international-based organizations in coordination with the Ministry of Culture and Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. He served as a lead coordinator for the Global Buddhist Summit 2023, held in April 2023 in New Delhi. The event was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and was attended by senior monks and representatives from several Buddhist monks. In March 2023, he coordinated with the Minister of External Affairs to organize the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in New Delhi on the theme Shared Buddhist Heritage of SCO Nations. He is also the key person responsible for the successful of the second Global Buddhist Summit, which was held on 24th January 2026, organized by International Buddhist Confederation in collaboration with the Ministry of Culture, Government of India. Over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Tashi Dilek. I think Pempa is very in detail explained to you as to what all we do in the IBC, the International Buddhist Confederation. Basically, we try to promote and project India's ancient Buddhist heritage. And this we do at the global level in different parts of the world. So that the international community, especially the Buddhist community and those who are based in Southeast Asian countries and South Asian countries, especially Buddhist countries, they benefit from it. One of the things which we do other than what Penpa just mentioned is we take the holy relics of the Buddha. The relics are body parts of the Buddha which have been put together from different places in India. They're 2,500 years old. You will find a relic in the National Museum in Delhi. and there are others in different parts of the country. There is one in a place called Devni Mori in Gujarat, which has never been taken out of the country. And we just, last week I was in Sri Lanka, and if you have read the news, we took the holy relics of the Buddha from Devni Mori to Colombo. It was taken on the 4th of February. That was the National Day of Sri Lanka. So the Sri Lankan government and the people of Sri Lanka desired that the country is blessed by the sacred Buddha relics. So that's how we took the relic there. And the relic just got back on February 11th, just 2 days back. So these are things which we do. Last year we took the holy relics to about 3 countries, Vietnam, Thailand, and then Bhutan and Russia, of all places. Thailand was the year before. So Russia has a very interesting, there are 3 republics, autonomous republics in Russia, which are Buddhist republics. So we took the relics to one of these 3 republics called Kalmykia. Bhutan was very interesting because when we took the relic to Bhutan, our Honorable Prime Minister was also there in Bhutan, and the King of Bhutan was also there. So imagine taking the Buddha's relics, or the Buddha, actually the relics are treated as the Buddha, to Bhutan, and our Prime Minister is there with the King of Bhutan before the relics both getting blessed. So these are some of the things which we do, but coming to the topic, it's a pleasure always to be part of the Tibet House activities, and Geshadamdulji is a very humble person. I feel being part of a family with all of you here from Tibet House, and never hesitate to participate in any event of yours. This one is a tough one. This is a very interesting, sophisticated subject, but very important and very critical because it has to do with the entirety of universe, the entirety of human civilization, the earth, the planet, whatever you see around us, a major subject, and the interconnectedness, as the topic says, between the mind and the cosmos. For civilizations over the years, people have been looking at the stars, the moons, the moon, the sun, and they have been looking at the universe or the heaven not merely as curious observers, but also with a lot of reverence. There has always been this feeling among all human beings that, God exists there, so that there is this arm lifted up towards the heaven, that God save us. And that's the natural tendency, because it seems that God is there and God has created us, so it's all from there. That is the kind of reverence which one has as far as the cosmos is concerned. And the formation of stars, the movement of the moon, the sun, the planets, have always had some impact or the other on humanity. Different traditions, different civilizations have considered them in their own respective ways. If you go back in history, the Mesopotamian civilization, they were so serious about the entire planetary movement that lunar eclipse for them was considered as a day when the king is going to fall. It was taken as granted that lunar eclipse is the day whoever is in the throne, he will not survive. So what they would do is they would remove that king for those 2-3 days, the period of lunar eclipse, and they would place a dummy king so that the king is not affected. And then they would bring him back. That is the level of an intensity of understanding people had at that time. If you go through the Egyptian civilization, they would map out the formation of the stars in order to realize as to whether there is going to be flood in the river Nile or not, and they were very precise. Similarly, the Greek civilization always went in for an assault or a conflict or a war, depending on the right position of the stars. They would pull out of conflicts when they would find that the star combination is not perfect. Indian civilization, we all know, right from the date of birth, connecting it with Shani and Mars and all of that, we have our astrological chart laid out and the future, etc. Now, this is where it is very interesting that, I'll use the word Astro-Science instead of Tibetan Buddhist astrology or astronomy. It's amazing because here, the underlying theme is that nothing happens independently. Nothing happens on its own. There's something called paticca samupada, which means everything, every object, whether it is this chair, table, mic, you, myself, the trees outside the car, and so to say, these celestial bodies and everything is part of one entity. The atom, the electron, the neutron, etc. So it's all considered part of entity, a single entity, and therefore the universe is also part of a system where human beings exist. You cannot detach the universe completely, but the activities which are happening in the universe, whether it is the comet which is showering, or the planets which are existing, or the solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse, all of these are in Astro-Science. In the Tibetan Astro-Science is considered as a mundane, regular phenomena, not to be taken as seriously as the Mesopotamians had taken it. That if this is the formation, then the formation says that there is going to be death and devastation, so it will happen. That kind of feeling is, and that kind of approach is absolutely negated by Tibetan Astro-Science, where the emphasis is more on the human mind. The underlying factor is the human mind. Everything is controlled by the mind, whether it is emotions, whether it is joy, whether it is sorrow. These are all elements which are affected by factors like time, energy, environment, etc. But the critical thing is that mind is ultimate, and nothing can surpass the mind. So even the developments which are happening in the universe, they can at best influence you, but they cannot control you. This is very clear in the Tibetan Astro-Science. It is something like a weather forecast. Weather forecast can be very bad with hailstorm and rain, and you are supposed to travel to your destination. So the weather forecast is going to deter you from going, but it cannot control your movement. You can still go. If I have to go to my destination under any circumstances, I will beat the weather. The weather is just informing me. That's it, that it is bad. So this is how in the Tibetan system, the belief is that astrology, as you go in, it gives you direction, it gives you certain tendencies, but it cannot, it can influence you, but it cannot control you. This is what is very critical. There are, of course, different elements within this. I think Tenzin is the expert, and it will be better to listen to him. And I must say that His Holiness has always made a statement on this, and he would always say that astrology describes tendencies, like I was mentioning, but wisdom and ethical action transforms outcome. So when you talk about the mind, there is a lot, if you know about Tibetan Buddhism, on mind control, compassion, wisdom, mindfulness, etc., etc. So if you are in grip of your mind, and if you're able to control your mind, come what may, the predictions, astrological predictions, or the speculations, it doesn't make a difference. You will be able to use ethics, ethical values, and wisdom to control yourself and change the negative or adverse nuances towards positive nuances. And I think this is what is very critical in Tibetan Buddhism and Astro-Science, which gives a lot of hope, which gives a lot of positivity, which also tells you that you are not the prisoners of the stars. You are not the prisoners of the stars, but you are a liberated person, and you are your own person. Here, I think I'll try to make a connect with what the Buddha taught. He existed at a time when religious norms were very strict in every tradition, whether it was Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, very, very strict. You could not afford to talk against any religion or any teaching, etc. But the Buddha actually had the courage to say that, he would tell people that you can listen to the gurus, you can listen to the saints, you can listen to the padris, you can listen to me also, but you don't have to follow what we are saying. You don't have to follow what all of them are saying, and you don't have to follow what I am saying. You have to follow what your mind says. After listening to all of them, whatever you feel is precise, appropriate for you, your mind, just adopt that and follow that. So I think that resonates very clearly here when we talk about Tibetan Buddhism astrology or astro-science. Again, it is the mind, it is you who decides, as the Buddha had said, not the universe. So I think I'll end here and I'll request Tenzin to continue with the actual discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay. Respected member of the Sangha, most honorable chairperson, Sir Abhijit Ji, and all the members gathered here. It is both my absolute joy and honor to represent Tibetan culture, Tibetan Astro-Science, and my institute, Mensekang, Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute, to share bits and pieces of this frame of Tibetan culture, my own understanding of Tibetan Astro-Science, and my personal experience. As a student of Tibetan Astro-Science, I've always been fascinated by numbers, and this very day, looking into the history, is a very significant one. 113 years ago, is it clear? You can hear me, right? Okay. 113 years ago, on this very day, February 13, 1913, His Holiness the Great 13th Dalai Lama proclaimed Tibet's independence. It's exactly 113 years ago. So it is after a 2-year extended stay in India, mainly in Darjeeling and Kalimpong. When he was to return back to Tibet, he did so, and also advised 5 major plans in terms of greater restoration and rejuvenation of Tibetan culture and so forth. So coming to the topic, whenever I'm presented with such an opportunity to talk, so I intentionally and purposely have this as the very first slide. So since many of you are closely associated with the Tibet House and has been a student of Geshe-la, so I'll not try to intrude more into the Buddhism, but as the topic says, I have to take a little bit journey here and there. So the purpose of having this is that the story has it that when Gautama Buddha was giving the first sermon after the enlightenment, it was in Sarnath, and the first of teaching was the impermanence. And the last of teaching was also the impermanence. So when he was doing the teaching, because he was the Buddha, so he has all the magical and mystical powers. So the story has it that whenever he talks or gives sermon, so all the different entities, different sentient beings, hears them in their own, preferred ways and means. So when he was giving one such teaching, so there were also the male and female deer that is replicated here, tuning to the Dharma. Usually we know this by the deers tuning to the words of the wheels of Dharma. So the central one is the representing the Dharma. In a way, it is the 8 noble path, and also in terms of it, it is going against the 8 worldly pleasures. So the deer tuning to the Dharma here in terms of focus and mean. So in a more selfish understanding, what I'm trying to bring it here is that because when you tune into the Buddhist learning, it all starts with 3 modes of learning, and first it begins with hearing. So my selfish understanding here is that as many minutes I'm having here, that may I have the luxury of your undivided focus and attention, so that I'll be welcomed with even more interesting questions thereafter. And in the Tibetan domain, also in terms of Buddhist understanding, whenever we are to have any auspicious thing, be it a composition, be it a lecture, in anything, we start with a homage and then we end with a dedication. So, as for the reason why we are doing homage, I have 3. And I have, because this is the year of compassion, and with His Holiness, 90 years of compassion, so there is no one more apt and meaningful and greater than His Holiness himself as a subject of our homage. And for this, I have this my own composition in terms of offering my deepest respect and regard. So first I will recite, dedicating his body, speech, and mind to making this world a better place, even exchanging his own happiness for the suffering of others, echoing oneness through the language of loving kindness and compassion, teaching others to smile and to be a little kinder to one another. My only Buddha, may you live long and in good health. And the reason why we pay homage here has to be three. Number one is, as I said before, is the respect and regard aspect. Number two is curtailing back to the source, which is very important. Because when you talk about the Tibetan Astro-Science, we talk about the Kala Chakra. Kala Chakra is intrinsically related with the existence of Tibetan Astro-Science. And when you talk about the Kala Chakra, and in terms of having this tradition alive, one of the key roles has been with the Shambhala kings. So it's quite mystical, so I'll not be going more into the arcane subjects here. But when you talk about the Kala Chakra lineage, so one of the principal person in this is the Kalki king by the name of Pundarika. So he composed the book that we call as the principal commentary to the Kala Chakra, known by the Sanskrit name Vimal Prabha. In English translation, we call it the stainless light. So he is responsible. He is also a manifestation of the Buddha of compassion, Lord Avalokiteshvara. So in that, His Holiness the Great 14th, we also regard as the manifestation, human manifestation of the Avalokiteshvara. In that, when you look into the live and activities of His Holiness, number of Kala Chakra empowerment he has given is one of the greatest of in history. And the one reason why we look at in more particular is that he is also a manifestation of Pundarika. So, and third is seeking of balance, blessing. Blessing here is whenever we try to do something, it is with an aspiration and hope that it becomes wholesome, meaningful, and that all your time and energy spent here is more justified. In that, I seek the blessing from His Holiness, so that my address somehow it adds to the positivity, it adds to the happiness, and it adds to more meaningful world and its inhabitants. So one thing we say is that trees have roots, people have history, and that is not most interesting, but that's how we should be beginning in the subject. So though the topic has the word Tibetan Astrology, as the chairperson also spoke a little about this, so we are using the word Tibetan Astro-Science. It's never an attempt to intrude into the science part or justify that we are a science sort of thing. So in our understanding, especially coming into exile, so because, way back before the 1959, English was not really a language that we have to deal with our day-to-day. So everything was more common. If you look into the history, His Holiness usually celebrate his birthday on the 5th day of the 5th lunar month and not on the July 6th. Only after coming to exile, it started to be July 6th because it is more common and more easy. Just like that, when we were first into our days in exile, so we were looking to find a word that is more apt. So then the word Tibetan Astro-Science came. In my personal journey, one of the great help came from the principal interpreter to His Holiness Geshe Tenzin, who suggested that this word gives it a more holistic and more justifiable understanding. Because when you talk about the Astro-Science here, we talk about the traditional Tibetan astronomy and also the Tibetan elemental astrology, which we usually deal more about with the word Jyotish. And here, it all starts with the birth of the Tibetan civilization, because when you look into the Tibetan history, the earliest of livelihood, even now to this day, it's pretty much the same. It is the nomadic lifestyle and the farming. So when you look into both of these livelihood, it is deeply related to the floras and faunas and all the surroundings. And the understanding of it really enriches in having their livelihood more impeccable and more meaningful. In that, when you look into more of the traditions, something that is on the record, we say at the times of 100 BC, there was an old lady weaver who studied the moon calculation. So we have to understand it is 2,100 years before to this. Right now, when you look into it, it's more easy. So what she found, though she is not really the most knowledgeable, but because of her repeated understanding and trying to decode this understanding, what she said was, when you look into the moon calculation, it's a 30-day lunar month. And when you look in lunar days, when you look into this, from the first lunar day till the 7th, what usually happens is that moon comes up in terms of the appearance, and it starts at time of the dusk, and it remains till the midnight. And then from the 8th till the 15th, it elongates the tenure that, when it's a full moon day, you see it from the dusk till the early morning hours, continuing it. And then from the 15th till the 22nd, moon only gets up to vividity only after the midnight, and then it stays till like 6 to 5. So that we usually in Tibetan culture, we say it's the moon for the thieves. So during the wee hours, we only have the thieves. And moon seems to be here, somehow amplifying the role of the thieves. And then finally comes the day or night without the moon, that is the no moon day, the 30th. So such is the understanding that has been there since a time like 100 BC. And then with the involvement of time and bringing of the Buddhist culture and the happening of the Tibetan written language, that is in the 7th century, so we have the textual knowledge, that is first we call the Tibetan elemental astrology, and that is believed to be preached by Buddha Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom. So when you look into the Tibetan culture, especially, one thing that is more common is we talk about the 12 animal signs, and then there are also a little bit more arcane subjects. We talk about the parka, that is the trigrams, and the mewa, that is the magic square numbers. So when you look into these understanding, so these are dealt mostly with the Tibetan elemental astrology. When you look into each year, just when you see outside, there's a poster saying that celebrating the year of the fire horse. When you look into this understanding, the element of the fire and the animal sign as the horse, these are more from this part of the subject, that is the Tibetan elemental astrology. And also, as parts of the domains to this, we talk about the general sort of the calculations, that we talk about different horoscopes that caters to the well-being and also somehow seizing of the challenges. And then comes the traditional Tibetan astronomy that is first translated into Tibet in the 11th century. So when you look into the Tibetan traditional astronomy, so as I said before, Kala Chakra plays a very central role. And when you look into the Kala Chakra, so, sorry. Sorry. So when you look into the Kala Chakra Tantra, it's surely from the Vajrayana, but when you look into Kala Chakra, it has 5 main chapters, and the role or the key factor is about attaining the Kala Chakra deity, that is the Buddhahood. So when you look into the 5 chapters, it's beautifully portrayed in a way that the 5th one is the completion stage. In Tibetan, we talk about the Dzogrim, and in the 4th is the generation, that is prior to the completion, and the 3rd is the empowerment. So for the Buddhist student, we talk about the Kala Chakra empowerment. So that is mainly from the 3rd chapter, and 2nd chapter is the beings. That is how the inhabitants of this world came into existence. So we talk about the channels, the bindus, the dots, and so forth. And then the 1st chapter, that is the external Kala Chakra, it is very much about how this universe came into existence and how the planets came and so forth. Surely there's one wonderful thing that I've always, loved to share. It was during one of the teachings of His Holiness when he said, Buddha did not come into this universe to measure the world. He came to teach the 4 noble truths, surely. But when you look into the Buddhism or the Buddhist understanding, everything is portrayed in the field of interdependence. So you just can't talk about this is the Buddha, this is the world, this is the empowerment, that's it. So it has to be in the arrangement of the interdependence, as Sir beautifully talked in his talk. So in that understanding, when you look into the color chakra, so it puts everything from nothingness. So just like in the more of the cosmology understanding modern, we talk about the Big Bang and everything. So just like that, when dealing with this, it talks about nothingness and the more of the subtle universe and grosser aspects coming together and then falling into the present understanding that we have of it. So I'll talk more when I get back. Then one thing that I really find, amusing but necessary in terms of introducing about Tibetan culture, especially in terms of Tibetan Astro-Science, it is that we are looking or we are studying the same sun, the same moon, and the same lunar mentions or the stars. And be it the Tibetan Astro-Science, be it the Vedic, Chinese, or the Hebrews, or the Vikings, and even the Hellenistic, and also the Western astrology and astronomy, when they talk about it, we are looking at the same one. So, it looks more like a child play, but sometimes it's necessary in terms of telling that there is nothing such as a Tibetan sun or Tibetan moon and the Tibetan lunar mentions. We all are looking at the same one, but difference is adhering it to the Buddhist philosophy, how we try to understand it and amplify it in our usage. Because, with my practice, one thing that I find is that, Gautama Buddha, when he taught this subject, or when you talk about the Buddhism in general, the role is that everyone attaining the Buddhahood, that is the goal. But in our day-to-day life, like it or not, believe it or not, we are tormented with disturbances every now and then. So the role of the Tibetan Astro-Science and the role of Tibetan medicine, it's all about somehow seizing these challenges so that we are more attuned to our practices and more meaningful in terms of our own study of the Dharma, so that our life in terms of it is more meaningful, more wholesome, and so forth. In terms of that, the role of Tibetan Astro-Science has been more in terms of safeguarding and protecting from the uncalled for disturbances of life. So when you look into the Tibetan Astro-Science and other Tibetan cultures, so there are greats like Shulangan master by the name of Ananda Kumar Swami, and then the 20th century Indian scholar by the name of Sir A.K. Saran, who said, when you look into more of a culture, more of a tradition, it has to have three principal ingredients. Number one is that the one who taught this should be an authority of the subject. And number two is the continuation or the lineage that is also unbroken. So when you look into the Tibetan Astro-Science, as I talked about the Tibetan elemental astrology, we have the Buddha of Buddha Manjushri, Buddha of wisdom. And then when you talk about the color chakra, surely we have the Gautama Buddha himself. So, and then when you talk about the lineage, so in terms of lineage, from the times of Buddha till the great 5th Dalai Lama, that is in the 17th century, then continuing it till His Holiness the great 14th Dalai Lama before coming into exile, and then our own institute playing the more sort of like the central role in terms of its custodian, its practice and preservation. So, so this is why I've written here, it is a collection of experience and logic of the elderlies. That was the more of the medieval or the very start of it. And then it is based on the wisdom of the accomplishment, as I talked to you about the Buddha himself and the Buddha Manjushri. And then the third one they talked about, it is something that is available, that can be somehow understood by the common sense and so forth. And to that, I do a little addition here. And what I really find more meaningful, especially with our practice, is that the motivation has always been to help others. Especially in the times like this, in Buddhism, we talk about it's an eon of degeneration, where it's more about the disturbances and more about the negativity. At such a time, as a practitioner of Tibetan Astro-Science, and also as a Buddhist, I find it ever more important that the motivation should be always to help others and not really to take advantage of the problems. Because in my own practice, over the last dozen of years, I had the great pleasure to, provide my consultation to over 1,000 of, clients. In my practice, one thing I talk about is that when you look into the percentage, as I talk about numbers, so mainly 70% usually comes when problem or challenge knock them. Surely we do have, like, I came to Dharamsala and I want to, avail whatever there is. And then surely there are, long students of His Holiness who also want to, take a look into Tibetan culture, what you have to as an offering and so forth. But many of the people who come to us are usually at a time when there is a problem. And such, the motivation really plays a, important and primary role, that is to help them and facilitate them in better understanding of themselves and so forth. So when you look into the astronomy or the astrology or the Buddhism in a more sort of like the holistic understanding, and surely about the medicine. So because I come from an institute that talks mostly about astrology and the medicine. So one thing is that in terms of Buddhism, since most of you are students of Tibetan Buddhism and Buddhism at large, we talk about more of a grosser level and subtle level and a more subtle level. On the grosser level, it is all about understanding of the 5 elements, and on more subtle levels, we talk about interdependence and surely about the imprints and karmic factors and so forth. So on a grosser level, so I have here a saying from the White Birine. It's one of the principal and authority books on the Tibetan astronomy, written by Desi Sangye Gyaltso Rinpoche in the 17th century. So he is a principal regent to the great 5th Dalai Lama. So he wrote, "The external world consists of the 5 elements. The internal aggregates and constituents are the 5 elements. There is nothing that is not of the 5 elements." So when you talk about the word element itself, surely in the modern chemistry we talk about the 100+ elements. But when you look into the subject itself, it's about the constituents, it's about the microscopic and the macroscopic in terms of building up of things. So when you talk about the tangible ones or the non-tangibles, when you look into the understanding of it, everything is a product. In the Tibetan medicine, we say the patient itself is a product of 5 elements, the doctor surely the 5 elements, and the sickness itself is the product of 5 elements. It is when there is a disbalance that is what really causes all the problems. So here to elaborate, I have listed some examples. So when I was preparing this, so my understanding is that I be in a facility where even the ones who are hearing it for the first time can somehow draw from this. So I'm not really in attempts to keep it more sort of like a scholarly or more textual to it. So at the very bottom, it looks in a way a little bit amusing, but very important to me in terms of explaining the role of 5 elements. So I draw this from one of the teaching that our late Dr. Pema Dojila gave back in the time. So he said, when you talk about the 5 elements, many times we look into the more sort of like, more academic or more scholarly understanding, but look into the daily life. So when you look into making of a roti or a chapati, so there are the 5 elements. First, we have the refined flour, that is the earth element. And then when you put water to it in terms of making it a trough, there comes the water element. And then with your skill, we make the rounds. Sometimes it becomes triangle here and there, but somehow we finish it. And then when we on the hearth and when we do bake it, so nowadays in the microwave and so forth, so there is the fire element, the heat factor. And then if you are good enough, it puffs up and it takes the air that it really pushes around, and the one that facilitates is the space element. So this is the portrayal of the 5 elements. Just like that, our own body, when you look into the breathing aspects, is the air element, the blood, the pus, water element, and the sweat surely. And then the body itself is the earth element. And when you look into the heat, the heart, the beats, these are more of the fire elements. So, and then something that really, facilitates everything while we are alive, that is really the space element. Just like that, when you look into the cosmos, that I'll be trying to do in the next slide, it's all about the play of 5 elements. And then surely when you look into the 5 Dhyani Buddhas that we talk about, so you can just see from the colors itself a representation of different, surely in terms of the different Buddhas, hand structure and so forth, they are different. Like when you look into the Buddha Amitabha, so it's more about the longevity and so forth. And then there are different Buddhists. And then when you look into nowadays, more in the fashion, the prayer flags. So when you look into the more historical understanding, the role of the prayer flags is to uplift your luck factor, so that when you are to do something, and when beside all your attempts and your dedication and everything, when things are not really playing out or bringing the fruition, that's when we use these prayer flags in terms of amplifying your luck factor, so that it becomes more into the result. And then there's also the different shapes and colors. Just to give an example that how the 5 elements can also be understood. We have the cylindrical, triangle, square, and so forth. And then something that is more exclusive to us is the astrological amulets. So in the Buddhist domain, amulets play a very important role. Amulets are more from the Vajrayana, but these are very important in my own practice. So I meet people from all sorts of backgrounds, Buddhists, non-Buddhists, even atheists, and in that domain, sometimes it's difficult to say, like, can you recite this text in text? So in that, sometimes, if not presented well, it seems like, I'm trying to, somehow have a Buddhist audience. So in that, the key is all about helping the person in need. And such times, amulet, in my own experience, has been something that has been very helpful in terms of seizing the problems. I'm not saying that having just the amulet solves everything. Then, it's very much against the Buddhism. But surely have a great understanding of it and how it works and what you should be doing. Because we talk about, you are your own master and your nirvana is within you. So it all has to start from your own action. That also stemmed right from your mental capacity and your mind trainings and so forth. So in that, what I'm trying to put here is that these are just an example of the different aspects of the 5 elements that is on a grosser level. So 5 elements can also be understood in a more macroscopic and a more microscopic in day-to-day happenings and other realities. So since the topic has a little bit about the cosmos, so I am pushed to have at least a slide on the cosmos. So the above one is the 2-dimensional model of the Gola, that is the sphere or the universe. The bottom one is the 3-dimensional. So what I'm trying to put here is that in the Tibetan Buddhist domain, though it's one, but in terms of understanding the universe itself, we have different or multiple understanding of universe. The one that I draw here is more from the Kala Chakra tradition, wherein we talk about everything that is outside should be inside, wherein our body and the universe, as I said before, is a product of 5 elements, so these needs to be related. So when you talk about interdependence of the cosmos and the mind, it is where it touches. Surely, you are the principal player in here. So when you look into the universe, up above, you see empty, blue at the very outset. That is supposed to be the space element. And then when you see the black sphere in the more of above one, there is a circumcentric circle. So the black one is the more of the wind element, and the red one is the fire element. The blue one is the water element, and this yellow one is the earth element. So what I'm trying to put here is that, in our understanding of the universe, so we talk about the circumcentric here as it does, and then says these are the different aspects. So when you look into your own body, so when you look into the measurements of your own body, from the very tip of your middle finger to the right, from till the tip of the middle finger to the left, the distance to that, we say it is the air element. Okay? So in that, beyond that is the space element. And then from here to here is the fire element. From here to here is the water element. And at the very center is the heart that we talk about as the earth element, as the basis of everything. So, and then putting it or amplifying it with a little understanding from the Tibetan medicine, what we say is that just as we have here, as I said before, the universe and the body, it works in terms of alignment, in that we say that just as it's spherical in the shape, so your distance from here to here and distance from the very crown of your head till the tip of your toe, it should be same. So, but I'm not asking you to measure it right now, because the next line follows. If it's not in that distance, something is wrong. So we say it's not the most perfect of body. So it doesn't talk about the beauty, it's about just the measurement. So in our understanding, because when you look into the weather itself, the change in the seasons and so forth, there is a different understanding to it. Some do say that winter comes, then you have to prepare for it. But in other culture or in a more sort of like Buddhist domain, it is the change that you see in yourself that precedes to what is existential or notice outside. Like in myself, I stay in Dharamshala for most of the year, and one of the things that is really famous up there, beside His Holiness surely, and is the ginger lemon and honey tea. So that's something I never miss. So, but what happens is that in the summer times, because of the heat that is available outside, and when I, somehow, upscale my consumption and continue with my habitual drinking of ginger lemon honey tea, then what it happens is that it somehow, excessive amount of heat is generated that usually, gets to the forefront. In my own personal experience, especially in the start of autumn, what I usually experience is mouth ulcer. So what I'm trying to put here is that the understanding of the external world and the internal inhabitants, and the reality is that when I talk to people about what is the key here, the key is balancing the 5 elements. And 5 elements in a more grosser, it's about different energies. So when you can understand that, then in our day-to-day life, things are more easy. Surely in the Buddhist understanding, especially in the Tibetan Astro-Science, one thing we say is that whoever you may be, there are, in terms of life, there are 3 good days and 3 not so good days. So in terms of better understanding of it really helps you in terms of preparation and so forth. To the left of it is the planetary positions for the year 2026 that I've drawn here. So just as Abhijit mentioned, so it's not, in my understanding of it, in my personal capacity, what I do say is that it is not that the stars or the planets are moving that is causing the problems. The thing is that when you look into our own existence from the very start, something that has been throughout are the suns and the moons. That has been the most sort of like permanent, though in Buddhism we talk about impermanence, but they seem to be something that has been throughout. So we have somehow portrayed them, used them in our understanding so that we are facilitated in terms of living it more meaningfully and in making the best of our practice and so forth. So in that we do amplify or portray them in our day-to-day understanding. And it's not just this one, this is a part of it, but when you talk about the word cosmos, so it talks more about the planetary movements of the planets. And just to give a broad understanding, when you look into the Tibetan Astro-Science, just like the Vedic and more than into the traditional, we consider planets still the Saturn. So the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto is not really used like in the Western Western astrology. They see it more as something that amplifies in their chart and so forth. So, but we curtail it till the Saturn, and surely we do talk about the one that are more famous like Rahu and Ketu and so forth. So as I said before, the movements are the same, but how we decode it and how we understand it in our day-to-day, it differs because of adhering to the Buddhist philosophy and so forth. So then when you look into our day-to-day, so we talk about the 4 inevitable sufferings of life. So the birth, aging, sickness, and death. So no one can escape from this. So I'm also not trying to portray that, the Tibetan Astro-Science can somehow, overcome this. But it aids in terms of, making it the journey more smoothly. And in that, when you talk about the birth, that is the first of the inevitable sufferings that Buddha mentioned. So in my personal experience, I feel marital compatibility horoscope has a role to play in there. So what I do mean by that is that when you look into the birth, it all starts not just with the conception, but a little before to that, when the lovers, when they do meet. So surely that at that time, it is the love. So, usually one amusing thing I tell is that at the start of it, everything looks beautiful. And then with some time, you feel like, maybe I'm not really the right person or you're not the right person. So I feel that is when you don't really have the great understanding of the person and things have been more awry. In that, in terms of marital horoscope, what we do is that the bride and the groom, that has been very traditional to our, our culture. So we take their charts and try to understand the compatibility. We are never in a push to say that, okay, you're not the perfect one, so look for other. It's more about what are the pros and cons and how we can somehow make the union more compatible, more meaningful. Even when there are disturbances, how one should be dealing in that understanding. In that understanding, if you can bridge and somehow get the union, and then when there is a newborn, life becomes more meaningful in terms of it that you can somehow help the new one, because it's not just us, but also when you look into the modern day medicine and so forth, the early years of the childhood, very important. The mark that it brings sometimes lives till the end of life. So, and especially when the early years are disturbing, it's really difficult, especially also from the Tibetan Astro-Science aspect, in terms of, somehow undoing it and making it all a new one. So it all starts with birth, and prior to birth, as I said before, it starts with the marital compatibility. That is the union of two male and female. And then comes the aging, that is universal. Though we accept or not, that's a different thing. But in terms of that, natal horoscope is something very important. Also in terms of natal horoscope, just like we talk about in the Vedic aspect, here also we talk about life divided into 9 different patterns ruled by the different planets. And one thing I usually say is that it's all about 4 beautiful faces and 4 not so beautiful faces, and then one that is more of the referee, that is the middle one. So what we are trying to say here is that it's all about when the difficult times enters your life, one thing that I find more significant is preparing the person or the individual when the problems are to set in. So the problems are there always, as talked about earlier, but it's all about making the person more capable, reading the person and alarming it, because in our Buddhist domain, when you can visualize the problems earlier on, be it death or other tragic understanding, we are more prepared. And as His Holiness usually talks about seeing the problems more, if it's more like the ocean and problems are just like the waves, it comes and it goes, but oceans remain still as ever. When your mind is prepared in such avatar or custom, then it's more easy. So many times, when person comes for an horoscope, one thing I'd say is that we both agree that you are the one who knows best about yourself. As an Astro-Science practitioner, I'm never saying that I know more about you than what you know of yourself. But many times, be it the self-grasping attitude or ignorance or whatever you call it, that sometimes we don't realize that we have this capacity and we have these problems. So because we take it for granted. So in that, when you talk about things, many times people say like that, okay, acha, now the dots are connecting. So the role is more about helping the person discover themselves and more. So we're never saying in a way that, the predictions or the forecast that we do 100%. Because as a Buddhist, the thing is that everything is changeable in terms of your own preparation and your own understanding of it. So once there was an elderly, allopathic doctor who came to me. It was near the end of my, office hours. But he said, please, I need this consultation because something had happened. And I said, like, okay, sure. Then, we did the consultation and it ended till like 6. So, and I said, like, since I did the favor in terms of, entertaining you at this hour, you have to be honest in terms of your feedback. And he said, you said many interesting things that are really helpful, but you are not 100%. And I said, like, I'm glad I'm not 100%. And then, in a more, joking way, he said, if your predictions are 100%, you should be up there with the Buddha and Shivji. And I said, like, I'm glad. So we are never saying we are 100%. But as I said before, it is in our role, it is all about helping the individual have better understanding so that the preparation happens. So when you talk about the more beautiful parts of the life, when the stars are aligning in a more beautiful, it's all about magnifying and using the times more meaningful. Because sometimes when things are more in a better way, surely because of the karma that has been accumulated in your past and the present life, we take it more in a slow way, not really amplifying the opportunities. In that, each day, as it never comes again. So if you can use it more properly. So even when there is a downfall, we never see it more as a downfall, but it's a need to be more in focus and more in attention. because that's when we take things for granted for too long, then it never happens. Just like one of my favorite Buddhist scholars, Geshe Laktola, used to say, there's always the iPhones getting the updates and so forth. When was the last time you updated yourself? So in that realization, because in our day-to-day life, we are consumed mainly by the, as his Holiness talks about, the sensorial pleasures. So it's the touch, the taste, and more of the vivity, and not about the mind. Like when you go into the shopping malls, the floors that are, it starts with the perfume, the apparels, the dishes, the gyms, but not about the mind. And especially when at times like COVID hits, that's where you go back to your mind. And when nothing is much there, then that's when the problem sets in. So surely when we look into the charts and when you do the consultation, sometimes even when the nation itself is running into problem at such a time, but when things are more better and when you are more prepared, you do see positivity. Also in terms of Buddhist learning, we talk about taking the problems more towards your own training, wherein we drive more when there is a problem. So what I'm trying to put here is that the natal horoscope is nowadays also in terms of the new era, we have this thing called oral consultation, where you can sit with an astrologer for 45 minutes, wherein not just you can listen to them, but also ask questions and get it more sort of like better understanding and more holistic understanding of it. So in my capacity as the, in terms of our outreach department, once a year we try to have a week-long session here in Delhi at our, branch in Nizamuddin, and also we try to have it in our branch in the Mumbai, where we also have the branch clinics in Navi Mumbai and Malat. So that is one thing, and surely the more traditional of the having it in written format is also available if you contact our institute. Then third one is the sickness, and for that we have the medical horoscope. Surely I'm not saying that when someone gets ill, the doctor is the first person you visit, but then sometimes, in the words of our doctors, they say like, if there is a true patient and prescribing the same medicine, some do get fined by the 5th day, but some do not. So especially in the times of when it's more about the terminal illnesses or more complex figures, in that the role of the medical horoscope really kicks in. Like when you look into the words of Buddha himself, he talked about 404 different illnesses, of which 101 are such that you don't need the medicines, it's just the time that it takes to cure. And then 101 are such that you need the best of medicine and the doctor in terms of curation. And then there's 101 such for which it has to be prayers and understanding of it. What we usually talk about is caused by the evil spirits and so forth. It is mainly because of our unwholesome diet, unwholesome lifestyle, especially in times like this, it's even more evident. And then finally there is 101 illnesses for which, even beside having everything, it's time to bye-bye the world. So what I'm trying to put here is that when things are more complicated, especially with your health and so forth, if you can have a consultation with the medical horoscope, it gives you a more holistic understanding of the illness. So in our practice, sometimes I usually tell that it's not about having the best doctor out there. It's about having the right doctor for you. So it need not be the one who is the most experienced and the best. I'm not saying surely they are the most decorated, but sometimes the one that you need is not that one, but the other one. So in that we amplify the usage of the karmic aspect, which is also listed in our principal medical texts, the 4 tantras. And then finally is the thread, for which we have the horoscope for the disease. So I think this is something that is more exclusive to the Tibetan culture and the Buddhist culture. So wherein when someone passes away, usually that's the suffering. But sometimes it is the start of a suffering. Because sometimes in families, when someone passes away, it opens up different problems one after another. So the role here is to understand that and somehow not have the problems continue to the remaining members of the family. So in that, surely when someone passes away in our Buddhist culture, we keep the deceased body for 3 days, because the Tibetan word, when you talk about the death, it is the present tense of the death. That is chiva, not shiva. That is chiva because we say it's the dying. When the doctor pronounces someone as deceased, we say it's dying. So because when you are a more exalted figure with the experience of Vajrayana Buddhism and so forth, then we talk about getting it into more of what we usually call as tuktam. That is the post-mortem modern meditation, wherein a learned master would be in a position unchanged even after so-called deceased for the 30 or 34 days. Like His Holiness principal interpreter, tutor, Captain Rinpoche VI, he was in that meditative state for 13 days. So there are also, even nowadays, there are great masters, who are presenting themselves into that exalted, meditation. So, in our general understanding, so we usually keep the body for 3 days because, as I said before, everything starts with the coming of the 5 elements. Just like that, at the time of disease, it is going back to nothingness. That is, and when we were to die, there are the process mentioned, wherein we talk about not really seeing clearly, and then feeling of more thirsty, and your eyes all getting dried up, and then not having difficulty in breathing, and then finally the heat in the body getting seized. So these are all the somehow subtracting of the 5 elements in the more grosser level. Surely it can be discussed in the more grosser, subtler, and more subtler understanding. And then this is just to give an understanding that, how we usually do the consultation. The picture that I have here is just an application of what we do. That is oral consultation. So when we do, the person in the middle is said to be the interpreter because this picture was taken in Japan. So when I was doing that, so it's with the help of an interpreter. Otherwise, we do it with the client himself or herself, so that the conversation is more confidential and everything is just between the person and me. So in that, I've just here portrayed the signs that are used by the Western astrologers, just to give you senses that we are all talking the same thing. But as I said before, it's the understanding of it. So the ones that you see in the right are something that is more common to your experience because it's something that is dealt by all. The one that is below me, the picture here, it's more from the Tibetan elemental astrology. So it's something that is might be new to you. So this is something that we also study and practice in our day-to-day. So it's the coming together of these two so that we are equipped in terms of giving the advisories and helping in that. So since I'm taking quite time, so I'll need to rush a little. So this is the most important. So it's the preventive, antidotal, and remedial measures. So when I do a consultation and they say like, okay, this is the problem, this is this, and then, it's amazing. Then what's next? So it's not about just the introduction of the problem. It's about overcoming of it and overwhelming the problem itself. In that, there are different ways. So, when I saw the poster for the talk, so they have used the sipaho, the Thanga of protection. And I was like, that's not me doing it. But wonderful thing is that whenever we have a new thing coming up, like a new shop, new house, or wedding, or even something like sort of like cremation or something like that, we have this at the very front of it, the sipaho, that is the Thanga of protection. So we see it more as accumulation of everything in terms of warding off the negativity. So in that understanding, there's nothing more principal, major, or important, or more dominant than this. So what we have here is a collection of everything that makes sense in terms of greater understanding of the world, the problems, and so forth. Like when you look into the central one, or the above one, so we have the 3 Risum Gombo that we talk about, the 3 different Buddha families. So at the very central is the Buddha Manjushri. I'm sorry if you can't really see it properly. So it's the Buddha Manjushri, that is the Buddha of wisdom, that is said to be from the family of Tathagat. And then we have the Buddha of compassion, that is the Chenrisi from the Buddha family of Padma. And then the third, that is the we have the Chanadoje, that is from the Buddha family of Vajra. So in a way, it talks about the compassion, it talks about the wisdom, it talks about the powers, mystical powers, and so forth. So in terms of protecting it all from all spheres. And when you look into the central one, we have the turtle. The turtle is not just the animal itself, but a representation of the world and the inhabitants. And then when you look into the more central, surely there is another turtle and the 12 animal signs. Okay, thank you so much. So, okay, thank you. So when you look into this, okay, I can also use this. So you see the 12 animal signs here. At the very central is the magical square numbers, and then you see different pictures and arts here representing the 8 trigrams. So what I'm trying to put here is that we have everything portrayed here, so that, you know, when you look into all the evils and negativities, if not by this, should be by then. So in like that, it is a protection. So surely there are, you know, recitations that you can do along. And then at the very up, you can see here, that is the Namchu Wangden, another very important and powerful aspect that we talk about. And then there are different seals that you can look into it. And at the very bottom, if you look into here, so we have the sun, the moon, and it is the Mars, the hand representing the Mercury, and then we have the dagger representing the Jupiter, and then the Venus, and then surely the Saturn and the Rahu Ketu together here. So what I'm trying to portray here is that when you look more deeper into the Tibetan Astro-Science, so when you look into the Mewas and the Parkas, as I said, talk about, and the 12 animal signs, it is not just the signs, but it's a portrayal of different Buddhists and different deities and so forth. So when you look into the very essence of it, it is more about on a deeper level, as I talked to you about, it's more about your karmic factor, your imprints, and your understanding of the wholesome and unwholesome aspects of it. And then surely the second one, as I mentioned earlier, we have the 10 powerful aspect, also very important. And you must have seen this central picture in many of the museums for surely, and also in terms of the temples and monasteries. So it has a different understanding. Here, in the simplest way, it talks about the realms, the formless realms, the desire realms, and the form realms coming all together, representing the 10 powerful words, that is Hankhya Mala Varaya. So it is a power of all the entities, including the 4 or 5 elements and so forth. And the third is the amulets. So from the astrological amulets, as I said before, it is something that I find very important in terms of the helping the God. So, you know, in terms of science, we talk about, have you tried it yourself? When I say something. So in my own experience, so I can show you a bag full of amulets that I've always carried. So the first one that I usually carry is the orange one. The one that I portrait here is, we call it the Manjushri amulet, something that I've been carrying for the last 12 years. So I'm not really trying to, you know, commercialize anything, but just to introduce you, because sometimes what happens is that we have it, but we don't really get familiarized to it. So in that understanding, and surely for the Buddhists, we have different mantra recitations and different scripture readings and so forth. So someone did ask me once that, you know, how this amulet works, and I said, it's something I'm looking for. But then he said, like, it really works. Then I said, I have proofs. You know, what I'm talking about here is that my own clients, you know, who are on deep medications, who have been consuming so many other pills, and there is one particular client, you know, when we were doing the consultation, it was not really in the most hopeful of way. Like, you know, my doctor recommended, so I'm just doing it. And then somehow, when it came to the antidotal, then I recommended the amulets, and they said, like, you know, in how many days should I be expecting the change? And I said, like, let's hope it really works sooner the better. So then a few months later, I did get a message back saying that, you know, what is really in there? Something is happening. And I said, like, in a positive way or the negative way? In the positive way. So the pills have come down to 2 only. So the antidepressant and other things have been cut off, and it really works. So I'm not just saying that, you know, everyone who takes it works in wonder ways. Surely there is the belief factor, faith factor, and then your own feeling that, you know, one thing I talk about is that many a times these things, when you look into the pictures, the projections, the scriptures, they amplifies you. But you are the main person. You have to change. So when I look into doing the forecast or in terms of explaining the role of the planets and so forth, I said it has to start from you, so that in Buddhism, one thing we talk about is your favorable deities and gods, so that if you work or if you help, as we talk about, these supportive channels somehow finds that okay, now something is coming up. Now it's on us to play our role. It happens. But if you end up being the helpless, then it's really difficult. So as His Holiness usually talks about the power of hope, that is, even in the most difficult times, if you somehow gather the hope, then you never know what can happen. So in my own experiences, as I talked about in meeting thousands of clients, there are times when it's very difficult. Like a client saying that, doctor is only saying 3 months. So what I should do? Should I be reciting the mantras or should I be living the life? So it's all about having a better understanding of how you can use it. It's all about using it in the most meaningful way, in the most, surely the passionate way, so that it becomes all meaningful. Because as I said before, there is always the birth, there is always the death. As His Holiness the Great Seventh Dalai Lama, Gyalwak Sangyazo wrote, that once you are born, it's just a marathon to the death. You can't really inverse anything. But the main thing is, are you living it in the most meaningful way or not? So then surely last we have the propitiatory rites that you can do. So the amulets and propitiatory rites and using of the sipahus, you don't really have to be a Buddhist in using this. Because with your sincereness, it really helps in terms of amplifying your positivity and overwhelming the negative aspects. So in one of the early slides, I talk about the 4 factors here. We talk about the life force, the health, wealth, and the luck. These are something that is very akin and needed. So then people talk about how I can amplify these aspects. So because whenever I give lecture, the thing is that what is the takeaway? So if there is something that needs to be tangible, as nowadays we talks about. So for the life force, if you desiring to living longer life, the easiest way to practice is cutting down your meat consumption. So I'm not saying this as a Buddhist, but in general understanding, if you can be a vegetarian, the best. Surely it has to be from the deeper understanding of the effects and everything. But if you have health issues, maintain to whatever the doctor advice is. But in general, if you can cut down the consumption of meat, then it really helps in terms of the longevity. It is with the scriptures and also with our practice. And in terms of your health, the best is if you can help the sick. That is, helping them with the medication, even with little donations here and there. So, because, the world can never be free from the sick. There is always a sick person. In terms of, if you can help in that, it's something. And in terms of wealth, the greatest of thing you can do is donate. So once there was a client who said, I want to be rich. And I said, donate. And I said, if I can have the money to donate, then I won't be asking you, I want to be rich. But only by spending, you are getting richer. I'm not saying with the traveling, but in general here. So if you can donate, then it happens. Back in the time in Tibet, when His Holiness was giving in 1954 or something, the first Kala Chakra. So there are families, the wealthy ones in Tibet, who are said to be the sponsors of the Kala Chakra. And the people over there usually say it's their role to be the sponsors. But the thing is that the sponsors, even after having all the donations, they never get to where they've become less rich. It only helps in that. So if you can donate more, surely the world needs it, and in a more right center and right person, it really helps in terms of making the voice even more multiple and so forth. And finally, in terms of the luck factor, the key is all about saying less negativity about others. So surely in our day-to-day, and also the prayer flex, as I mentioned earlier. So many times when you talk about the luck factor, the key is all about doing it in silent. And even if you are not doing it, if you can speak less negative about others, it really helps in terms of your own luck factor. So for these 4 practices, you don't really have to be a Buddhist or even a believer. It's all about surely believing in the humanity and about the wellness and well-being of every other. So then, since I'm already intruding too much into the time, I'll have the last slide, the most important. So everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always. So this is something that is the key of the message of His Holiness. Because, if one of the things that Gautama Buddha talked about is that everyone desires happiness and no one desires suffering. And one thing that His Holiness talked about, something that has been more central, is that happiness comes more when you work for the others. So, especially in the difficult times like now, when there is wars, there is malnutrition, there is trouble everywhere. So in that time, if you can, least of all, if you can be kind to another, if you can somehow be a reason of others' happiness and well-being, there is no greater meaning or purpose to your life. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and I am looking to your questions. So please don't really expect the best of answers, but surely honest answers.
Thank you, Mr. Tenzin Landela. Well, actually, we were supposed to have a 25 minutes of question and answer session. Unfortunately, due to the time constraint, I kindly request all of you that we are going to have 10 minutes of question and answer session now.
What information do you need to make a horoscope? Like in, now you understand the question.
This is Astrology 101. We need the name, the gender, birth time, and place of birth. Same, yes. Yeah. Okay, I'll just stop here.
Second question is like, we know the astrological impacts, right? What is the concept of free will in astrology? Free will means, if I say astrology, right, it says that, okay, what is going to happen in my life, then I am bound, right? Can I do beyond that? Is there a possibility of free will in Tibetan astrology?
Thank you so much for the question, sir. So, so this is where I draw the commonality of the astrology and the Buddhist practice, or the Buddhist philosophy, wherein we talk about everything is changeable in terms of your own being the central of it. So in that understanding, surely when I do a consultation or the forecast, this is what we see, the planetary movements, what is really impacting. In that, as I said before, it's not just saying that, okay, this accident is going to happen. It's about like what preparations you can do prior to this so that the effect is minimal. So in that, sometimes people, come to me saying that, I really wanted to do this business, but then it's not my good year. So then I have to postpone it. I'm saying, no. You don't have to postpone. You have to prepare now 2 times. That is it. So in my own chart, if I may say, so, in India especially, we talk about the Shani. So I say that, my Shani is going. So, and last year is supposed to be my sort of like in the Tibetan astrological understanding, last year was my obstacle year. So I'm not supposed to be traveling and doing it. But last year I traveled even more. I did even more. Because the preparations from your own mind, your own actions, the needed prayers and everything, if you can do this, then it's all about making it even more carefulness. Surely when there is a problem that is seen, what I usually advise is that just be more mindful than before. Because it's not just like, okay, difficult times are here, so I'm going to be the hermit, and not really. In that, it's more about somehow subtracting the pleasures of life in its more holistic understanding. So the key is If you are more alarmed into these understandings, it's more about uplifting or upscaling your preparations so that you are more prepared. And sometimes when you look into this understanding, sometimes what happens is that, like, one aspect of in our practice, we do the divinations, like the great masters usually do, and we also, as in Tibetan Astrology, we also do divination. People come to us saying that I have two opportunities. Should I be sticking to this or that? And one thing I usually say at the front is that, with all your intelligence and wisdom, are you sure that you can't really make a choice between the two? Because sometimes we say, like, okay, just do the divination. And I say, like, first, from your side, do all your maths and calculations and experience so that you feel like, okay, still I can't really choose. Then we do the divination. And what happens is that if someone is preparing for, in India we have many exams. So people come to us saying that, I'm doing for this UPSC and this, is it working or not? Then the people come to say, and I said, like, the chances are difficult, but it's 6 months left. You can still make it. And then after 6 months, with your preparation, and then when we do the divination again, it is bound to change. The good thing is that 6 months prior to it, the person was told not so good news. But as a human, with all your capabilities, it's all about, okay, the problem are coming. It's not like this, I'm running away. It's all about, okay, I'll upscale my preparations. So then you can somehow overcome it. So surely when we talk about inevitable sufferings, these are bound to happen. So it's all about your preparation. So sometimes in the Buddhist domain, when we talk about this, then people say, like, astrology and Buddhism are two different aspects. And I say, like, it has to be together. That is why the practice, and when you look into the great Tibetan astrologers in the 16, 15 and prior centuries, all the great masters of the Buddhism are themselves the great practitioners. So when you look into His Holiness, the great fifth Dalai Lama, who has himself written a very defining book on the astrology itself. So in terms of the practice, as I said before, it is not just to scare you or saying that this is it, buy it or leave it. It's about, like, this is it, you have to upscale it. Thank you.
If astrologically, if there's a reading given by, let's say, 3-4 different astrologers, is it possible through astrological remedies to change the the forecasted happening? Like if there's a plane crash or anything, see, or a jail or say anything. Second question is, if astrologically, if there's a reading that you'll never get married, or so many people, is astrologically remedies are there? You can change those circumstances and they can become
Okay. So in a way, the first questions and second questions to make a link together. So in that, in my experience, especially in dealing with the clients, surely there are people saying that, I've been told this will happen and this is to happen, so I'm just waiting for it. So as a human, as an individual, as a Buddhist, surely, the understanding that when Buddha talk about his own dharma, if we talk about the impermanent being the only permanent and change being the only thing that is permanent, in that, if with your practice, surely it has to. Surely, when you look into the antidotal or the preventive measures, these really has amplifying roles to play. Like in my own experience, when I look into clients, there are people, when they come to saying that, okay, this has been defined by this and this practice of it, and it's very difficult. And I'm saying that, after hearing this, did you really somehow, put off all your hopes in this? And I said, like, yeah, it's more about, like, subduing yourself to this. But, the more important is that surely when someone tells you this is going to happen, because, when you look into the divination, the interesting part is that when there is a two-player or team playing together, one is bound to win and one is bound to lose. If you take the focus into different astrologers or different practitioners, some will say A will win, some will say B will win. Somehow there's only going to be one victory. So in that it differs. So the key is, whenever we do such consultation and practice, we do see it more as a forecast, as you sir mentioned. And then there is always, like, when you look into the challenges and the problems, there are the antidotal measures that we usually prescribe. if you adhere to it more sincerely and more devotedly, and also somehow have your preparations upscale, I'm not saying that everything will be over, like in terms of the terminal illnesses. So surely you have to see which doctor is more better in terms of this, and how you have prepared in terms of your, because it's not just the illness, it's about your mental aspects and your emotional aspects and your social aspects. This also take into play, because nowadays when you look into these understandings, sometimes the problem is that we are somehow in the more microscopic, where we are feeling, as His Holiness usually talks about, a more holistic understanding. Because when you talk about the health, we talk about in the more physical, mental, emotional, social, and also nowadays even at a greater stage. So in that, if you can have it, then even when the problem comes, you are more prepared. And somehow, with more facility, it doesn't look as damaging as it was. So I'm not saying that with the recitation of a tantra here or a mantra here, everything will suffice. It's that whatever is meant to happen, it should happen. But with your preparations, it will not be as devastating as it is supposed to be. So this is it.
Thank you so much for this wonderful lecture. So I wanted to ask you that in the Vajrayana practice, the combination of wisdom and compassion is becomes enlightened. One can become enlightened. So, as in your career, have you seen horoscopically, the planets? They are so perfect that that person, you are 100% sure that they can be enlightened in one lifetime.
That's a challenging. So, in the Tibetan word, we talk about the phrase "tapshe songju," that is coming together of the path and the wisdom, where we talk about emptiness as the understanding of it, and the compassion as the pathway in that understanding. So when you look into the horoscope, surely at times you look at the people ask, like, with your experience, how do you rate my chart? And I usually say what I do see. But the thing is that, as I said before, in all horoscope, in all charts, there is always life divided into 9 different parts. There is always the 4 sufferings and the 4 good parts. So in Tibetan, as I said before, it's about 3 good days and 3 not so good days. So in terms of it, everyone has to have good days and bad days. Even in the Buddha, it has the same, I believe. So, but the key here, though in Tibetan Astro-Science we say the ones who have taken birth with their own freedom, because of being the exalted ones, the enlightened ones who have taken the birth primarily to serve the beings, we say these are beyond the scope of Tibetan Astro-Science or astrology in general. But in general, when I look into the chart, it's difficult to find one that is perfect. Surely there is ones where there is less problem. So, but when I reveal to them, it is my understanding that I try not to really, tell that, everything is going to perfect or something like that, because then the ignorance keeps in, where they're feeling like, okay, this is good. Because, one thing that I've been advised when I was growing up is that, for the good, there is no limit. It always can get better and better. So when charts are good, and especially when we talk about the birth, like the year itself, we have in different years ruled by different animal signs. Like now, with the new year, it's about the year of horse, and last year was the year of snake. So pertaining to this, people have different attributes and different qualities. And then we look into these aspects. So joining all them, surely you do see charts where, okay, in terms of learning, you have a gift. And then as His Holiness talks about, because I was so intelligent and so smart, laziness somehow came in. Just like that, they are always. Like when you are told that you are gifted, then somehow it's the granted thing happening. So surely there are charts then where it's too difficult. In that, I talk about the more problems others can face. In that, somehow you are giving hope, because life at the sum, I believe, it's all about making the best of availability. So in that, but coming back to your topic, I haven't seen a chart where it says like, okay, you're bound to be the Buddha. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much.
question here. Don? Hello. Yeah, the question is, what is the relation with karma theory of, what is the relation with the karma theory?
Okay, just continuing a bit on the Venerable's question. So surely, looking into the chart, sometimes, I do see a chart where the person is bound to be more of ethical. So my way of portraying it is that, you are the kind of person who will not question the authority. You will just take it as it is. And even with all your, opportunity of exploitation, you are never the one who will going to take it. So, and then surely look in the chart, you see a person who is bound to be learners for life. So in that, when you channel all this into this, and you can somehow shift the person more into the spirituality, it really elevates the practice and surely into the fruition. Then coming into the karma, so my understanding is that your birth itself at this year, in this year, at this place, to this parent, is a product of karma. So surely karma can be understood in different levels, as I talked about, more on the grosser, subtle, and more subtle, as we talk in the Buddhist aspect. Because when you look into your body, that, with the last birth, as a believer in the rebirths, so the last birth, your grosser body somehow decimated. And then what has really continued is the consciousness. And that is the more of the subtle, more subtle body. And the ones that you see in the dream and the experiences are more on the subtle level. So in that, when you take a rebirth or the life, the present one, it is a continuation of the past. So this is the Buddhist understanding of it. So I believe this, the time, the face, and everything is a product of the karma that you have accumulated in the past lives. So bearing it, sometimes people say, like, why is it that from the very birth till now, in someone in 30s and 40s, the time's always been challenging? It's really difficult because it's a product of a continuation. So sometimes amusingly, if it's someone that I have acquainted well, I say, you should have asked your past life for this question. But in a more serious way, sometimes it happens like this. So it's difficult. But sometimes it happens where I meet a client, I used to feel that if I've met you 10 years prior to this, things could have been more beautiful. So that the person would know that this is my capacity. But sometimes we are meeting at a time when it's more about me delivering more of the sad news rather than more of the things. Like if I'm meeting someone in the 70s, or my oldest client that I've met is someone 87. So when I meet this, and you talk about all the good things that are in their chart, and something can somehow be used, and then at the age of 87, it's just like telling the story, or saying that, has it been, has it not been? So, but this very meeting, I believe, is a play of karma. Like this assembly, us meeting at this time, and not time before, it has to be a product of karma. So in that sense, surely karma, in terms of interdependence, it plays a very central role. Thank you.
My question is, I'm just curious that if it is about the marriage horoscopes, to be precise, if marriage horoscopes are there and they are being studied well, so then why is there a rise between the divorce and the extramarital issues? And was there not the proper studies wasn't there of the horoscopes? Is the question.
I'm not so sure all the 8 billions have done their marital compatibility chart. So, because the thing is sometimes maybe our absent-minded, or Captain Mingyur Rinpoche talks about the monkey mind in us. So maybe it is that beside knowing everything, we end up doing the wrong thing. So, but on a more serious understanding, with the marital horoscope, what we do is, as I said before, we introduce what we see in the chart, the plus and minuses, because there is no such as I'm not really, because tomorrow is a more special day. I'm not trying to be less romanticizing it, but it's difficult to say that it's like made for each other. Even in the couples sought to be made for each other, there are problems bound to happen. It's just about how prepared are you in terms of accepting and knowing it. Because since we are all in this mundane world, and since we are in the cyclic existence where surely we say that in a more eternal, so it's more purified stage. But because of the stains and because of our karmic existence and because of our imprints, we are attributed with the negative qualities. So because of ignorance, aversion, and anger, and hatred, and so forth, sometimes we are blinded by these understanding, because of which it's difficult. So when two bride and groom comes to this, surely we do a chart in that and try to explain what has been there. So, but the key is, in the following years, how much have we changed ourselves? Because transformation is difficult. Surely saying is easy, but doing is difficult. So even when you know that anger is there, it's difficult to accept. So it just off the line, once I was doing a consultation to a person, and I said your main problem is anger, and I said you can't be saying this. And I said no, that's what I see in the chart. And I said no, don't say this. and it's just it's very difficult to explain it another way, that anger is the problem here. So just like that. But if you can somehow use it and amplify it in your practice and transform it, as we talk about in Buddhism, the key is transformation. That is the purpose. So if you can do it, then surely, I'm not saying that it will, cut down all the divorce and all the different figures. But the thing is that at least you are in a more educated and more right frame of mind when you make the decisions. Thank you.
One more question.
This is the last one.
Okay. So I was in the Mensik Hang in the Majnuka Tila, and I eat mostly the vegetarian food and don't think about negative about people. But there the doctor told me that you should focus eating more meat rather than on the non-veg. In the whole year I didn't eat any meat or any non-veg. So he said that evil spirits are hurting you, and you are going into depression. Stop it and build your heart. Your heart is very weak. So okay, I don't let any negative thoughts. So is there any connection with the horoscopes and the karma with this? Even though it is advised to do some prayers and rituals before you eat any non-veg and non-vegetarian food, so that it can cut off the negative part of this.
Okay.
I think you just said that vegetarian is the essence of long life.
Surely, it's difficult to go beyond the doctoral advice, because I'm not the expert in that department. So surely, when my belief is that when the doctor has advised you, it is surely on the medicinal ground only, and not in terms of the ethical aspects of it. Because one thing is that when you look into, as I mentioned before, in the Buddhist understanding, we talk about aversion, ignorance, and the hatred, and these sort of like the defilements. In that understanding, sometimes when you don't really have a holistic understanding of your diet and lifestyle, even when you have this belief that I am taking the best of wholesome diet and so forth, because nowadays we talk about diets mainly in terms of proteins, fibers, and carbs. But when you look into the traditional aspects, we talk it more in terms of the hot and cold aspects. Because in that understanding, it's a different way of understanding. Like the simplest way is, if you can eat whatever is provided to you in a more warm condition, it really helps in terms of maintaining your digestive heat, which is really the key of it. So, but nowadays, there are so many disturbances that we are taking photos in here and there, so not really eating it when it's warm. So that's one thing. Surely when you talk about the consumption of the meat, if it's something that is necessity, then there are different ways of eating. Like the simplest way is that even if you are to eat a meat, if it can be, because I'm a vegetarian myself, so it's difficult to talk in this understanding, but if it's a meat that is of a larger animal, so even after consuming, just a bad example, for like 7 days, if it's only one life that is being consumed, it is much better than consuming all the small parts, wherein with one dish you are consuming like hundreds of it. So this is something also explained in the text. And when you are consuming anything of a meat or something like that, when you can do the dedication that, with all that I am, pushed to do, because one thing is, in the Buddhist, it's all about the mind. Where in one example I can give you is that, once that has been also taught by His Holiness, there was one great Buddhist master who was about to be cut off in the 1950s. And at that time, that Buddhist master was asked, do you have any last wish? And that master said, sure, I can recite a prayer. And what he recited was that, with this act, I pray to the great compassion, that may with this I take along all the sufferings of others, and in return, may I offer or generate all the positive karmas and actions. So surely it's the simple when you look into the more of the mundane aspects, but deep within, it really transforms. So such dedication and offering surely you can do, so that, even if you are doing something, it becomes more meaningful and more wholesome. Okay?
I think I'll just add to this, without being prejudicial, I think it's more to do with your clinical condition and aspect, and obviously deficiency of certain elements. Because of that, the doctor would have suggested. I know of quite a few people who are very old, aged, hardcore vegetarians all their lives, but they have reached a stage where, due to certain deficiency, they've been asked to consume meat, and it becomes very difficult for the family to do that, morally, ethically, and I know for a fact that some people have been, some families have made shreds of the chicken which you can't make out and mixed it with little bit of Nutri-Nugget and put it in the dal, so that the man cannot, because he has to survive. So these are mainly, I think, an honest clinical prescription which the doctor has given. But like Tenzin has said, mind has to be very clear. That's what it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
This gentleman was talking about karma. So is it, you see, it's an interrelated question. The karma shapes the planetary positions, the past karma you've done in this life or past lives. Does it, the karmic, the astrological positions are formed accordingly, and that happening will happen? And can we change that karmic position or the astrological positions with, let's say, practice of meditations, or with change in karma or some practices?
So when you look into the word karma itself, one of the clearest and most simple explanation done by His Holiness the Great 14th, Dalai Lama, he said karma means action. It's about doing it. It's not about just saying that I have done in the past life. Outcome is just to be bared. So with each state in our life, it's about changing. So your actions, body, speech, and mind in each day really hampers and really amplifies the change. So even when you are born at a difficult time because of the karma, but with the different meeting of different positive conditions, it can change. So when you look into something like, Tibet's freedom struggle or something like that, many a times when you look into the Tibetan oracles and so forth, their prediction has been that it's the need of the accumulated karmic sort of like positivity shared by entire of Tibetans. So it has to be determined by different understanding. So when you look into the problems, as you talked about meditation somehow being a key to this, because it's how your mind projects, how you see the world. So because, one thing that His Holiness also talked about, because of his interaction with the scientists, particularly the neuroscientists, is that I think it was Aaron back then, he said, when you see someone as the source of the problem or your enemy, at first it seems like he or she is the sole reason why I'm suffering. But in reality, akin to the teachings given by the Nagarjuna and so forth, the thing is that 90% is your own projection, 10% is what really the problem is. But with your accustomed sort of like, foundational understanding of this, then it never changes. But with your training and your broader understanding and deeper understanding, you see that, okay, this is the problem. Then, though situationally or existential, it looks all same. But with your differential understanding that you have somehow best out for yourself, you do see it in a clear, different way. So, as I said before, in terms of the appearance, it all looks it. But we talk about appearance and the reality being too different. So sometimes, many a times, because of our too much resonance with the sensorial parts, we look more into the more sort of like the outset and not really deeper. So with the help of meditation, your own training of the mind, your own different practices, and more grosser and more deeper understanding of the mind and the situation around. Because in a way, one thing I tell is that it's more, the astrological forecast in the chart, it's more like a roadmap. Surely with your qualities and your sort of like the abilities, you can change the roadmap here and there. But the thing is that this is not something like the final, or that's like, this is it. So you can surely change.
Well, thank you very much for your valuable questions. Due to shortage of time, we are going to stop the Q&A session here. I would like to thank our distinguished speaker, Mr. Tenzin Londela, for sharing us your invaluable knowledge. And I would also thank our chairperson, Mr. Abhijit Tharterji, for your kind gesture to spare your precious time and share for today's lecture. Before we conclude the session, I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Tenzin Kungala, on the stage to deliver thank you note.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pembala. Well, I would like to, with the conclusion of the special lecture, I would like to first thank our chairperson, Shri Abhijit Haldarji, for his unconditional and unwavering support and guidance to each and every programs and events conducted by Tibet House, the culture center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And on behalf of our director, Venerable Geshe-la, and all the Tibet House team, I would extend my heartfelt gratitude to you, sir. Thank you. And I would also like to thank our guest speaker, Mr. Tenzin Londela, for sharing his knowledge and his experience about the Tibetan medical astro-science. And during the course of time, when we were organizing this special lecture, I had the very opportunity to have a very long discussion with Mr. Tenzin Londela about this, and it was really fascinating for me and my team as well to organize this very special lecture. And obviously, he has been talking about the various aspects of Tibetan astro-science and about the four inevitable sufferings of life, which are the takeaways for today's lecture. And then we have the planetary position, the 5 Buddhas and the 5 elements, and also about the the Tibetan prayer flag, which most of us are very much fascinated, but we don't really know the meaning of it. But today, I really thank Mr. Tenzin Londela that, it was really informative, and we got to know the very reason of why we use this Tibetan prayer flag. And then I would also like to emphasize that His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has always been emphasizing on the very importance and the preservation of this unique heritage, which is the Tibetan medical and astro-science, Medzikang. And taking this very opportunity, I would like to thank Mr. Tenzin Londela and obviously the director of Medzikang, Mr. Tenzin Siringla as well, and the whole team for doing a wonderful and a commendable job to preserve this unique heritage of Tibet. Thank you so much. And last but not least, I would also like to thank our wonderful participants who have joined with us today for this very special lecture. and for your interesting questions, I would say, for this very special lecture. So I really thank all of you. And I would also like to thank our Director, Venerable Geshe-la, for giving us this opportunity to conduct this special lecture, and my Tibet House team for their very effort to make this special lecture possible. Well, thank you very much. And last but not least, without taking much time, I would like to make a small announcement for the Tibetan New Year, which is on Wednesday, 18 February 2026. So the Tibet House is very delighted to organize this very special program on Losar, which is Tibetan New Year. We would like to welcome the year of Fire Horse 2153 according to the Tibetan lunar calendar. We are going to have a visit to the National Museum to pay homage to the Buddha relics, and also we'll be undertaking the Aspirational Bodhisattva Pledge, being led by Venerable Geshe Dorje Abdullah, the Director of Tibet House, New Delhi. Thank you so much, and it was really a lovely session. Thank you. Good night. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to have a quick group photo. So I invite all of you to kindly come on stage. Thank you.